Okay. We'll see how the internet goes today. It's been a little iffy, but...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're back again. This week's podcast will be brought to you by Shy Eels and TV Escapism.
This week's podcast is also brought to you by back pain and bringing sexy back.
I am your host, Madison.
I am your other host, Jesse James. I am currently, well, if I sit in this position, I'm mostly fine. But I am currently experiencing the day after having a back spasm in the lower section of my back, right over like my left hip. So that's exciting. It means I get to walk around with this adventure cane that last time I had leg issues, this became known to me, but Nick has like hiking gear and this extendable cane. There's a set of them. So yesterday I was using both of them because I can, like, last night especially, I could move my legs, but because it's so close to like the hip socket, anything I do with my left leg, which includes compensating for my right leg, feels like somebody's trying to pull the bottom of my back in half. And about so it's we're recording this at about 4, which is like an hour and a half late, and I basically got out of bed at like 3:15, and found out last night also that we are out of like Tylenol that can deal with this. So I guess I'm glad it's not Mayday, because Nick ordered some prime shipment of just Tylenol to get here. So that'll be helpful. He also stopped by in a mask as though he was at like a grocery store, both to get his mail, but also to like drop off a couple of like extra strength Tylenol to get through to whenever things actually do show up. So
yeah, that's good.
I feel like you're having a better time with what you have on your end.
I am. Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm physically doing all right. No sensations of my lower back being ripped in half, so that's plus. I got dressed for the first time in a week, so that's, I feel like, an improvement. I did it. You're welcome, everyone. So that, and then I made a pina colada for today's drink snack corner.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
How did it turn out, and what's in it? And is it hot or not?
It's not hot because it's made of ice, and there's like all this condensation on the cup that's dripping on me, and I'm wearing a dress, so it's really cold. But it's all right. We made it just with a mix, so it's a little like sugary for me, but it's fine.
Yeah, some mixes require a little tempering, I feel like. They're usually built for the people who want like an extra shot in their like mochas and stuff, which I cannot relate to, unfortunately.
Yeah, I probably could have doctored this up a little bit, but I just didn't really care. So it's just
that's
mixed.
A good reason.
Yeah, I just want it to taste all right and do the job, and so it's doing it, and I have the rest in the freezer.
Cool. I'm jealous of that, though probably couldn't take too many pills with it. I did because so a lot of pain pills, which you probably know, but if anybody doesn't know, usually ramp up for like the first half hour to an hour, and then if you actually have something you need to take care of when it comes to pain, it kind of relies on you keeping a schedule with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that first onset of stuff midday yesterday was real rough, and I think the worst of it started when I tried to get into the shower yesterday. So of course it had to happen when I was like basically already set up to have to move around a lot.
Yeah.
So I ended up having like, I think I had like a regular sized beer and just downed like what, naproxen, acetaminophen, and ibuprofen. Like not a ton of any of them, but like a little bit of each, and a beer, and I have little like weed mints that I'm generally, they're CBD like based, so they have like a little bit of THC, but it's a 25-to-1 ratio, and
nice.
I usually have those for sleeping or things like that, like anxiety and whatever. But I also usually take like one, maybe once a week at the most, and they're cut in half. So like, it's not a big thing for me. But I took two halves with the pills and the beer, just trying to get to a point where like I wasn't sweating from hurting. And it kind of worked eventually, but it took a while. So that is a fun story. Part of the reason why it took me a little longer to get here today than I expected was because I forgot that putting clothes on when you're dealing with the problems of somebody who would be more like, I don't know, in their 80s, it's really painful to put socks on, and extremely painful emotionally if you try to put pants on and get like the wrong leg or something, because
no.
you've just made like a lot of extra work for yourself.
Yeah.
That
sounds not fun.
Yeah, it's hard to explain if you haven't had it happen, but the hope is that it will never happen. Thankfully, you're pretty short, so you can probably avoid it.
Yeah, pants are pretty easy for me.
Oh, well, and back problems tend to be less
common. Pants and back problems, two
yes.
things I probably won't have an issue with.
I'd be fine with sort of like avoiding the whole pants problem. That's not a necessity for me. So
I think we could just dispense with that formality since it's like pandemic hours. But yeah.
But I do have to work tomorrow, standing and like doing repetitive motion for probably 6 to 8 hours. So like I'm not loving that angle of it.
Yeah.
But being ready and willing to work is a huge requirement of receiving money, period. So for one of my food things today, so I'm gonna avoid calling this the dregs, but because I'm trying to finish all of the like food that can spoil before I get more food.
Yeah.
This is basically the end of a like little over 2 week chunk of time of food, and it's like it ended up being pretty Southwestern themed. I've got the 2 bell peppers that were still not gross. I've got, I think that French onion soup was something that my roommate was planning to make a little while back, and half of the 6 onions we had were still like in good shape. So it has 3 full onions in it
Mm.
that are just like thick chopped because I don't want like a bunch of weird twiddly strings in this. And then I have like a pretty good veggie sausage that I've had before, and like potatoes. And then because of how it was turning out in terms of its ingredients, I added like cayenne pepper and stuff to it. So
That sounds good.
it tastes like if you didn't finish making chili, if it was still like big pieces and fairly dry, that's what it tastes like, and that's pretty good. So
I think honestly, whenever I'm making soups and chilies and stuff like that, where you start out with like big chunks of things and you kind of cook it down, that's like smell wise, that's my favorite part of the process.
yeah.
So I don't think that's a bad thing. It looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I made a sausage and Brussels sprout roast thing the other day that was pretty good. Yeah.
My last roast that I made had Brussels sprouts in it, and that definitely made me want to get them more often.
They're underrated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're like little tiny cabbages.
Yeah, it's like people don't like weird pea smells and they get scared away from cabbage or something. Brussels sprouts do that too, but maybe
Really? I've
somebody
never
likes
noticed
that.
that.
Maybe your pea just smells weird all the time.
Maybe you just need to go to the doctor, I guess.
I also got this. This is actually from the care package, but I didn't have it handy. I have not tried these before, but they're semillas. They're like I think they're a Mexican style of pasta, but they're melon seed shaped. And
That's cool.
It looks like you cook them. It's like a cross between making rice and making spaghetti. So like it seems like it's a like a quick pasta, but it also is
like a risotto kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a slightly different take on a risotto, and I'm very excited to get something next time I go. Probably like a meat, and I can make a sauce for it. Makes kind of like I made hamburger helper, but I made it with twice as much protein as it says to make it with, and it was all veggie fake ground beef. So I have one more serving of that left, but it's just like this thick meat like thing that you can kind of chunk apart, but it does technically have bits of pasta in it as well, and it tastes good. But it was made with the lasagna style hamburger helper, which also came in that care package.
Nice. We do have a small stock of hamburger helper we'll probably be doing tonight.
Okay.
So
it's not bad. Yeah. I don't eat that style of food a lot, but it's I don't know. It works.
It's fine. It gets the job done. It's pretty I prefer, if I'm gonna do a hamburger helper, I prefer like the lasagna flavor ones. I think the other one, honestly, they all taste kind of similar to me, but I think we just last week or something did a like macaroni hamburger one, and it just it just like it's so dense that it's, I don't know. It's like too much for me, but
this is my first experience with the lasagna one, and
well, that is the delicacy, the primo of of the hamburger helpers.
Yeah, I'm finding that out. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think I should be. I like your metal straw.
Thank you.
I think I should be physically able to grab the components of this and show it off. It's what I was showing you earlier. These old ass potatoes that were also roommate potatoes. They sat overnight, so they're dry enough to plant.
Nice.
And they're just cut into sections, so they have enough material around the sprouts, but not like you're not planting potatoes. You just plant like little tiny wedges of potato with the sprout on it, and then I'm gonna be gentle with this. This is a biodegradable packing for like I forget what kind of component or whatever came in this, but it has soil and coffee grounds in it because that was also a way to not have to try to get into the low to the ground garbage can while I was making coffee earlier. But probably once we're done with this, I'm gonna just set all of the potato bits like equally separated, like you're making cookies, kind of.
Yeah.
And then just cover them just over the top with soil after that, so they have like protection. And then we'll see if it works. It's not a huge loss if it doesn't, but I also have the herb seeds from. I think I showed those off last week.
Yeah, you did.
I separated out some, so I should have 2 spots that should grow basil and 2 spots that should grow a seed I couldn't recognize. So we'll see what that turns into. It could be chives or something. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. I don't use chives that often.
No, I don't either. I would probably not use those, or I would like offer them to people, as is customary with vegetable gardens. Just try to pawn them off on people when they're around.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had a setup for a vegetable. I guess I could have planted vegetables. I just have that little herb planter, and I haven't seen any sprouts come up from that yet. So I've also am not the best at remembering to water things, so I probably should do that. But I'm excited because I got for last Christmas a little like compost bin to keep under the sink.
Oh yeah.
And I'm finally able to like use the compost after it has been just like smelling bad and been put outside for a while. So hopefully it helps and works, but I've never done composting before, especially in like an apartment setting. I'm not sure if I'm doing it correctly, but
yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but composting can be put into the freezer while it's in your house and then moved outside. So
yeah, I might end up having to do that.
It does help with potentially gnarlier bits.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly at this point. So it's probably going to stay outside for the time being. But in future batches of compost, I'll have to do that.
What size is it?
I think it's like, this is probably not helpful for me to this big. Maybe 6 to 8 inches in diameter, and then maybe like 1.5 foot tall. It's pretty small. It's just kind of like for small kitchen scraps and stuff.
Yeah. It's a decent size for like an in your house one. You have some kind of bug in your space?
There outside of our apartment, like wasps and bees are starting to build their nest. So occasionally I get in the windows these fucking gigantic wasps that are terrifyingly huge, and I hate it, and they're disgusting and scary.
You should look up the trailer for Stung.
I think did I see this? I think I saw this.
Yeah, you might have.
I think you showed me this.
I might have. It's. I mean, it looks like exactly what it's trying to do, a dumb monster movie, but with wasps.
That's like my worst nightmare.
Yeah, wasps and spiders are pretty high on my list of things I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, I actually read, I think this was a few months ago. I was reading an article about in Washington there were some uh species of wasp or something that was hanging out there that was not supposed to, and it's
Oh,
big and like eating other plants and insects and being a pest. So,
interesting. I feel like we're always getting large, shitty insects in this state, but most of them kind of have habitats they can be in outside of people's zones, so it's not really a big deal.
mhm.
I know we have like the uh, largest moths in the world or something. Like
Really?
one of the largest common moth species, but they can get to be like a foot across or something.
Wow. I've never seen a moth that big.
Yeah, it's not super common, but I have seen a few that are larger than hand sized, which is big for a moth.
Yeah. I
Uh,
I actually do remember now. Now that you mention it, I do remember when I lived there, we would always have like right next to our front door a bunch of pretty good sized moths hanging out.
mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know what anything about moth records or anything, so I have no more information than that.
If
But these,
someone can find us a Guinness World Records of moths, that would be really helpful.
yeah, send us your hot moth stats.
Oh.
So I think, especially because this has the potential to be a shorter episode, we should get to the important stuff, which is you've now seen movie 1 and 2 of The Matrix.
I have.
I would like you to give me your reviews.
Oh God. Um, I very much so it was really actually interesting to watch it since I've obviously never seen The Matrix before, and seeing it for the first time and realizing that how much of the like pop culture stuff that I've interacted with is directly
uh,
pulled from that.
yeah,
That was pretty cool. I mean, to give it my review, it was fine, I guess.
yeah,
I liked
that's the right
the
answer.
ooh, we have thunder. Uh I like the costumes. I think were probably my favorite part.
Yeah, I like thinking about those costumes and their actual application if people had to wear them, which
Yeah.
is
I
sweating profusely.
yeah. I love the creative decision to put Trinity in like a latex catsuit in every
Uh-huh.
scene. Like I'm behind that decision. I think that was pretty great. It's also funny to see how everyone's in like that full, I don't know, what do you call it, like a trench coat, like all the way to the ground, black
Uh-huh.
jacket. Like I
Yeah.
look at that and in the context of now think, wow, this is giving me like major school shooter vibes,
Yep.
but
Uh,
it wasn't
it,
as much, I guess.
it also gave a lot of school shooters major school shooter vibes, I feel like. Yeah, the
Yeah, I
look
think
of
you're
it is
probably right.
questionable. It's taken a
Yeah.
lot from like Netrunner and stuff like that, so it just is gonna look like that. But
Yeah.
I know that the description I heard for the Wachowskis' reasoning or whatever was because it showed the difference between their, I guess that's a clean, cool look, which I don't know about, and the like just filthy, nasty, like real world look that they all are sporting.
Mm.
Which honestly is more stylish, I think, in like 2020 than 20 years ago. The like sort of threadbare sweater over like just a plain tight shirt is
Yeah.
actually like I'm okay with. I have that style for certain things. So
Yeah, like you can go buy those sweaters at fucking All Saints for like $300
Yeah,
right
you
now.
could buy those like exact styles if you want pre-distressed.
Yeah. So like that was uh interesting to me. I think there were good movies if you want to watch something that you can make stupid commentary on
Mhm.
for the whole time. I watched the first one with Evan and we had a lot of fun just
Mhm.
shit talking the whole time. That was pretty good.
You like the part where I think uh I think Keanu Reeves jumps like he's a fucking like torpedo through
Yeah.
something. That's a really excellent.
The jumping is like top notch, especially anytime I Trinity has a scene because I guess her superpowers are just like really being really good at weird aerial hand combat.
Mhm.
I love her scenes because she just goes like suspended in the air like this for no reason and completely doesn't make sense, but it's fun.
I I did before, and I continue to have the most appreciation for the Morpheus style of wearing basically a Joker outfit. Uh, and I guess, like, archetypically, it's like uh, practically RPG characters that they have for all their main characters. Like, tabletop, like, cyberpunk games basically have the, like, this guy's good with swords and punches, and this guy's good with I don't know, electrical things, and this lady can jump nice. Like it's basically just nerd stuff translated into cool movie, and I think
Right.
that's why it worked as well as it did.
Yeah. And the yeah, the love story is kind of treated in the same love story. There's
Uh huh.
not really I feel like I just kind of half paid attention for a couple of scenes and then returned to the movie and now it's the end and they're like
Yep.
making out and in love with each other and I'm like okay, like
Yeah, it feels more like a hookup story than a love story in that
yeah.
movie.
That seems to be the case, I think, in and this is just me, I guess, thinking out loud, but when you're younger, you think every single movie love story is like a love story, but
Uh
when
huh.
you're older, you look back and it's like, oh, everybody's just like fucking.
Also, the fact that like Trinity is like scouting Neo, like
Yeah.
she's like stalking him in the computer because she's into him, and that's how the movie starts, which is also a weird like
Interesting.
I remember all the chunks of those movies even though I haven't seen them in forever, but the thing that was the most jarring was the very very beginning of the first movie, seeing the like she keeps stalking him is the setup for that movie, which
Hmm.
is a little weird. It just
Pretty translates well to 2020, though, I think.
uh-huh. And it really just sort of uh, strengthens the argument that that is the like teenage idea of what love stories are.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody leaves you a letter in your locker and doesn't put a name on it, and then you're like, oh, it could be anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. I think I liked the first one much better than the second one. The second one just had kind of a lot going on when simultaneously nothing happening at the same
Mhm.
time. So I was kind of I did fall asleep last night when we were watching it during the second one.
During
Um,
the car chase scene, right?
yeah. Well, like right prior to that. So I don't remember
Oh, okay.
what the scene was, but
So it was
yeah,
just spooky men with bad hairlines doing stuff, and then you fell asleep.
I do remember your comment about the hairlines and thinking, yeah,
It's
everyone's hair is so
it's rough.
And I think that's about where I pass out. But I finished it this morning, and as I said earlier, I think the highlight of the second movie is the evil boss man, Colonel Sanders.
Yep.
And then the movie just ends, and I guess we're gonna to be continued it because
we're gonna to continue it on Tuesday, so get ready for that.
Excellent.
We'll have the final update on this then. Well, then being next episode, but I think that my biggest problem with the storyline is that Colonel Sanders part, because the intention of that scene is that, spoilers if you're gonna go watch The Matrix 2, the purpose of that scene is to illustrate that the other versions of Neo from before then took the door to go become like a progenitor of human species to like continue their weird like transference of power with the robot. And it shows all the screens in the back that are showing like all of the ways that I guess past Neos have acted. Exactly. And like that part is pretty well represented as like what's happening, I feel like. Did that translate for you?
Yeah, I got that it was like different past, not alternate, like different past Neos.
Right.
Different storylines.
And this is more of an art thing than a movie making thing, but when he walks to the other door, which is kind of the whole linchpin of the series, is that he's doing the thing that isn't what the others have done. The screens all show him walking to the same door. And I thought in like sort of Jar Jar Binks as a Sith conspiracy mind that people get about movies, I thought initially like, oh, is that just a trick? Is that like he's actually doing the thing that they've all done when I saw it originally? And between when it came out and now, I had read all about it because it was the Matrix is much more of a like what was the intention kind of thing than it is for me at least a movie kind of thing. And all of that doesn't make sense because he's actively taking the other choice and they're just showing him take that choice on every screen. And the intention was that he was making a new choice, according to the writers and all of that. So like they just decided to make that the view of it, even though it doesn't make any sense for the storyline. And then it also kind of shows how the Colonel Sanders character is not really a very good actor because he either he's not a great actor and that he doesn't respond to that in any kind of like way that they translate, or he's just trying to be like computers don't get upset about stuff, and it just doesn't translate very well in the lines that were written because he's just kind of like, I guess, and then he leaves. Like it's not a like you're making a mistake or anything. It's just sort of like, and that's, I don't know. It's maybe the weakest scene, but my favorite scene in the whole second movie. And Nick already knows my thoughts on this. We share a living space, so I'll take the ramifications of this. I think that the scene where they are doing stuff on the freeway sucks, but they did spend a ton of money on it, like a ton of money on it.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And it is one of those things that stands out. Like it has like some at least notable effects in it and things like that. I just happen to think a lot of those effects look, even at the time, pretty bad. Like the same with that scene where he fights the group of Smith. And he once he gets that piece of what is it, light post that's when it really turns into like claymation. Like it's rough to like see that, like, in a way that is worse in some ways than like the old movies where it's literally claymation, because in those it kind of has this like I don't know, almost painterly feel of like that's dumb, but like I get why they did that. In this it feels like they didn't have to do it that way, but they did because they wanted to impress, as opposed to like maybe they had an idea for a scene and that's the only thing they could do.
Mm-hmm.
It also has the problem, and I mentioned this last night, that Face Off has. If you watch Face Off on a Blu-ray or later version of media, there is a scene towards the end, spoilers, I guess, for Face Off. You can't really spoil Face Off. They switch faces. And so there's a guy who's supposed to be, oh shit, Nicolas Cage in John Travolta's body, well, in his face, and then a guy who's supposed to be John Travolta with Nicolas Cage's face. Whatever, I think I just said the same thing in two ways. Doesn't matter. Movie's stupid. But it's two men with those faces fighting on a boat that's going fast. So in the original version, they had long shots of it that the people were probably like maybe, I don't know, 5 inches on like a normal TV screen. So their face isn't very apparent. And like old TVs don't show shit. So like you can do whatever you want. Watching that on new media though is fantastic, because like that Smith scene where they change the face to be Smith of all the people who are within like 4 feet of him, and then all the people in the background are like clearly other people, even though like you are supposed to be paying attention to the middle. In Face Off, they're on a boat and you just see 2 men fighting, and it's 2 completely different men. So they're just showing these like stunt men full face, nothing different about them, but with like the haircut of the actual actor. As great. I love that stuff. But I like that
Awesome.
That problem, for whatever reason, reads to me as a lot more endearing than a problem where it's like I don't know, Neo flying through garbage, and they have like PlayStation 2 cars behind him just kind of floating. I love those shots, but they are better GIFs than they are a movie, for sure.
Yeah. I really, really loved the scene where he like reaches into her body and starts her fucking hard again. That was really good.
I remember feeling like that was a little much, even when I saw it in the theater, of just like, well, and he's even down there like, yeah, like really getting in there, which I don't know.
I really don't understand, and I, not to inject reason into this, but I don't really understand how he gets to the end of the movie, and like the beginning of the movie starts with him being afraid, like he has premonition sort of things that Trinity's gonna die, and he's like afraid of that the whole movie. And then,
well, that happens at the middle of the first movie where they're like, oh, she's gonna die. Like they do set it up, but still.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't catch that, but
yeah, it's not super notable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's like foreshadowed, and he's scared about it the whole movie, and then she does, and then he just like no problem fixes it. Like, why were you scared of it this whole time if you knew you could just like fucking reach in there and like squeeze her heart back to life? Whatever. I had a good time.
Yeah, I think the best thing that I can say about it, and the most earnest thing, is like none of it is a bad time.
Yeah.
There are certain scenes in that movie that make me remember why I got into certain design elements for like mostly comic stuff. Like I will forever enjoy those it's basically a staff with like a spiky ball on the end of it, like not a mace, but like a big long staff. Because of the way they bend and stuff. Uh, and that movie is why I thought that was an interesting look, is because when for whatever reason, the one like small person, not little person, but just shorter person in all white in the second movie uh, is fighting in that scene that they like ape like Renaissance art with a little bit. Um, when they pick up that big long like spiked staff thing and whip it around, I just found that really like visually pleasing.
Yeah.
That's the hero of the movie for me, is that like short Asian man.
I think some of my favorites are just like the weird suspended jumping scenes where they're just hanging out, whatever.
Yeah, that stuff's really strange.
It's very like I would have liked to have seen it when it came out and just understood it in the context of like the time, because now I just see it and I'm like, okay.
Oh, the context at the time was exactly what you would think. People who would be excited about like the new feature nowadays that got like shown off. So they announced an Assassin's Creed game like a few days ago, and it's like Assassin's Creed Vikings. I think it's called Valhalla. And
Okay.
for me, that actually is a big step back because I like those games well enough, but I feel like with all the white supremacy issues, Vikings are maybe not the topic I want to go to. I would actually like to see, like, I don't know, Assassin's Creed Australia or something, like something that is completely different and not focusing on white people, because they did Africa, and then they did like what's that area that like Italy's in? It has a name. Yeah, they did Mediterranean. Going to Europe feels meh. Like it's better than like Assassin's Creed Britain, I guess. But I actually would have probably liked to see them, I don't know, continuing to cycle through like cultures a little more than going from what is essentially like Greece and Rome and North Africa to like Northern Europe. Like it's a little bit of a too concentrated for me. But I don't think they necessarily want to do anything that's that out of the ordinary when sales are probably weird with all of this stuff. That is a complete non sequitur, though, because what I was talking about is people who care about like the kinds of axes you're going to use in that new Assassin's Creed game are the kind of people who are like, look at the jumping, because it was neat, but they had like TV shows at the time that it came out would literally be like, and today we're going to take you through how they did it, and spend like 30 or 60 minutes looking at what is essentially just a loop of cameras that would all have like a microsecond shot between them. So it's really just like we did a wire effect and then it went down to slow motion with it, which is neat and extremely expensive, but it's also like, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I appreciate it for its effort and like innovation, but I don't think it looks good. Like it's not something that I would want back. I honestly, the thing that I thought looked best was the they blew up a lot of stuff in that first movie. Like they hit a lot of stuff that like broke well, and they used like computer graphics to actually do like a lot of I have pain brain, so ignore that. But they did a lot of industrial design that I thought was legitimately fantastic in the first movie that kind of doesn't exist in the second one. I think there's a little bit in the third one, but like those scenes in both movies so far that are just robots, I think those look great. And I think that's probably where their strength was making like really ahead of their time video game CG, basically.
Yeah, I said the same thing to Evan when we were watching the first one. I think in that scene where Neo and Trinity like go, I'm gonna say this wrong, go back into the Matrix or in like they're going through the security of that weird bank building that's all granite and stuff on the inside. And there's like a shootout and they're running and stuff. But one thing I noticed that I really liked is all the explosions and debris, especially in that scene, looked incredibly realistic and really well done. As even just compared to, like, if I just think of another movie with a lot of explosions, like Transformers, the explosions, when you watch that, it's like well done, well animated, I guess, but it doesn't. There's just more realism, I think, to whatever they did, because I'm sure that they're actually blowing something up and it's not all animation, although it's like a much smaller concentrated area than like a Transformers scene. But
yeah,
I really like that part of it.
They use their ability in a smaller and more effective way, I think, in those movies.
Yeah.
The Transformers stuff, all of those movies, it kind of looks like NVIDIA presents like Transformers. Like it's got a real like particle graphics look to it of just what I'm seeing is clearly an effect, and it is a very time-consuming one, but I just don't care at all about
it. Yeah. But yeah, I just liked their I like any pyrotechnics they did, the explosions they did. I thought they did a really good job. That would have been
fun. In trying to see where I could watch the Animatrix, which it looks like it's mostly like a for pay thing, unfortunately. But I still, if it's like $5 or something, I still think that's legitimately the movie to watch. That's actually like pretty impressive. But that one, I don't know. It just has a lot going for it. It has real storylines, I think, is also a big part of it. The Matrix is a lot of really interesting ideas that have a lot of filler and don't necessarily translate very well into like the future, let's say. But the Animatrix is more short story-esque, where you really feel like it doesn't matter when this takes place kind of vibe. Like one of them's about the Olympics. Like it just doesn't matter, or at least tangentially about the Olympics. It doesn't really matter that it is like in a time period. It still exists in the storyline, but it doesn't like have a problem like registering as earnest, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I would be interested in seeing those, because to me, what's interesting about The Matrix isn't like the fact that I guess it's, maybe this isn't even right. It's supposed to be like in the future, right? And AI have like taken over. So like that setting, that context isn't as interesting to me as just like the world of The Matrix and having to like be in it and out of it, whatever. So I think that would be worth watching for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think a lot of people actually like that second movie, now that I'm remembering a bit more of like when it came out. It was definitely like a message boards, what do you think this means kind of movie.
Yeah.
And I remember there being maybe the largest first movement of like sexy fan fiction on an internet basis from that movie.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Also, I just want to note, while we're talking about sexy fan fiction, was it note isn't I want to ask, was it a purposeful choice to make Neo and Trinity look like the same person? Because it looks like they are just trying to like have one person have sex with themselves.
Yeah.
Like, it's very weird to me.
Interesting. That's really true when I think about it. I bet there is some type of like reasoning or thought there because they do look like different versions of the same person. Maybe
Right.
it's kind of a reference to how like all the agents look like the same
It could be.
person. I don't know.
I
But
mean, it does I don't know. It does have a like Gnostic like uh the storyline like the Colonel Sanders puts forward of you can become the new human population kind of thing.
uh
Um, that is essentially the like death and birth of the universe like Gnostic thing, and it does include male and female sides of the same entity coming together. So like it could be a thing like that, but that is
like an Adam and Eve kind of thing.
like a yeah, it's like an Adam Katamon kind of like you you're just mashing one set of things together, and when everything is one point, it explodes out again. Like that's sort of their weird way of they kind of sort of by accident got to the Big Bang Theory earlier than pretty much anyone with that stuff, but in a very like human centric way that I think is really cool artistically, but I wonder if that's what they were trying to infuse into that, or if it was just we need white people for the main roles, or what.
With
Because
really angular faces.
yeah, because like Keanu Reeves wasn't the first choice, and the other people I heard as first choices weren't white, I don't think, and that actually makes more sense to me of having a more representative like set of main characters other than just Morpheus being like, I mean, he's still a side character even if he's one of the main set, and with how much attention they seem to give to like having representations of all types of people in that movie, you would expect it to be less white up front, I guess. But I don't know. Movies changed over the last 20 years a little bit, so it's impossible to say now.
Yeah. I've enjoyed seeing it. I think it's really um, going back to what I was saying originally. I think it's just cool to finally have a missing piece of
Yeah.
culture.
Well, like, have you seen how many of the Star Wars movies have you seen?
I've seen all the Star Wars movies.
Okay.
That culture I'm not missing out on at all.
No. The amount of people I've met who have not seen Star Wars of the original set, like the first three movies, is pretty high. So I'm always
Evan won't
curious.
watch them.
I mean, yeah.
Just won't. Which I guess is fine, but I'm just the original ones are very endearing to me as like a childhood thing.
Yeah, my stepmom had me watch those when I was pretty little. So in a weird way, those are like my favorite Jim Henson movies. Is the original trilogy?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are actually pretty fun, especially watching them when you're able to see like the one that George Lucas directed, the first one, has a lot of weird shit in it, and then as soon as it gets to like other people start taking a little of that power away, they get way better. Like that first movie's great, but there is some weird incest stuff. There's some weird like choices with pretty much everything, and then in the second one they just kind of like don't pay attention to the whole like brother sister love thing and all that. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad for people who saw the prequel trilogy as their originals, because that's
me
definitely
too.
the roughest of the options. But I do want to do a shout out for something that's infinitely popular than we'll ever be, but I still think people should watch it. It's um, uh, oh, I don't remember Jacob's last name, but Raul Coley, the doctor from iZombie, and he plays a character in like the Harley Quinn animated series currently and stuff. Uh, he and Jacob, a guy who works editing at Funhouse's YouTube channel, um, I think they post YouTube. They're like a Rooster Teeth affiliated thing. Uh, they did a half drinking game, half like I don't know, like 4 hour Iron Man competition almost on Bruce Green's YouTube channel where it's like archived. And for 4.5 hours, they don't read, they do all the lines that they can from episode 1 from memory. And
Wow.
it's very good. Really hearing the breakdowns and not like seeing the spectacle highlights some of the real weird shit in that movie. The pod
I'm gonna
racing
check that out.
scene is about halfway in, and it's excellent. They're both huge nerds. Raul Coley does like he does like miniatures when he's not working on like
Oh, really?
like projects, and he's done a lot while he's been in like shelter at home.
Cool.
Ow. And so he has like an Instagram with a bunch of like very meticulously painted stormtroopers all sitting next to each other and shit like that.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I recommend watching that. It's a great thing to put on while you're, say, making dinner, like I was when I was watching it. I think I was watching that and making a bad, like, approximation of Harry Potter that I think I called Harvey Popper in The Sims. And it. When was the last Sims you played?
Oh, I don't even know. I've never even owned one. I've
Yeah.
only played it like at friends' houses multiple years ago, so honestly, I don't even know which one.
I think unless The Sims is on a discount and you can get chunks of it for like a decent price, it's not worth it. But it is a really, like, it is a character creator that never stops, essentially. Except you're creating like houses and restaurants, and if you have the stuff I have, you're also creating like art galleries and vet clinics, I think. Like I have a weird hodgepodge of stuff from that. Oh yeah, just glowed about how I'm trying to lift up my left leg and it hurts a lot, but it needs to be stretched. Anyway, the thing that I built the other night while I was watching that and also making, well, I say dinner. I think I was making poutine that night.
Poutine is dinner.
It was very, very good poutine.
The pictures looked really good.
I have enough. That's actually the thing that this roast has enough like sauce from the bottom, stock essentially, that I was able to make a better consistency gravy, like a little bit thinner, not quite as thick as the last one. And it's twice as much because of all the like onions and stuff that were like more liquidy, and it smells amazing. So I'm really looking forward to when I can move around better and like do kitchen stuff a little better, because I'm
good.
Definitely like ordering a pizza or something for the next few meals, because the idea of standing in the kitchen and like trying to move heavy shit around and stuff is the least appealing thing ever right now. But that poutine that's coming my way is exciting. And I have enough fries to make a pretty decent batch of it. And that last set, I kind of got that feeling of like when you eat something that's good enough to where you're like, I just need to relax and ruminate on what just happened to me.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I was at. So it's exciting.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. I had another poutine thing I was going to talk about, but I've forgotten it. It's not important.
I'm sure we'll remember other poutine related things. While we're giving like recommendations and talking things to watch, one thing that I was going to bring up is that I have been watching two shows, a lot of two shows, the last couple of weeks as my COVID escapism, and it's been Ozark, which is pretty. Have you ever seen Ozark?
I've been recommended it a bunch. What is it? I know it's like it's got a hint of Breaking Bad, but that's the most. I like the main character. I think he's good and stuff. Jason Bateman. Is that his name? Okay.
He's funny. Now that I've seen him in a couple of things, I realized he pretty much just kind of plays Jason Bateman in all of his movies. Yeah. Everything that he does, which is fine. Not complaining. It's fun to watch. But yeah, it's basically
the entire cast of Juno is like that. Everybody who is in Juno plays themselves in every movie they're in.
Yes, like Michael Cera. That's who it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a good example of that. But yeah, it's kind of a similar sort of thing as Breaking Bad-ish, except for this guy at some point in his career, like he's a financial advisor and he's really good at it. Mm-hmm. And he has a firm with his friend, and they're approached by a guy, and he like goes through his books or whatever as like a complimentary thing. And he identifies that people are either skimming some money off the top, like from him, or he basically just says like, "There's something wrong. You want to look into this." And that client that he does that for ends up being like a drug. He's not the boss, but he's like in a network of money laundering, basically.
Yeah.
So the show, he eventually goes into business with that guy, and their firm serves as like a money launderer for him, essentially, for multiple years, and then something goes wrong and he has to go on the run from these people, and he moves to the Ozarks in Missouri to like be safe and also money launder. But it's pretty good. I'm not really into, I don't know, I wasn't excited about the idea of it just because I'm not super into shows that like Breaking Bad. I never really got into that much, but
yeah, Breaking Bad, I liked bits of it, but it was more kind of the way I liked Game of Thrones. I liked things they were trying to push, but I thought the show itself was like fine. I thought the acting was good in parts, but I didn't have any real desire to like see it through.
Yeah, I think why I'm so into this one is just there's a couple of actresses and actors that are really compelling, and I really like their story, but I can't remember her name. There's one girl who plays a girl named Ruth, who lives in the Ozarks, and her character is really interesting, and Laura Linney is in it. I like Laura Linney, so I'll watch
Laura
that.
Linney's good.
Yeah. She's really good in it.
This sounds like a gritty reboot of Schitt's Creek in a weird way, which I'm a fan of.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. The kids are like younger and more annoying. But
Okay, more annoying.
yeah. Because they're just like I think that in Schitt's Creek they're adults and they're annoying adults, and that's funny, but they're
Yeah.
just like kids along for the ride up against this murderous cartel or whatever. So it's pretty violent, and I think that's
Okay.
one thing that keeps me entertained. It's just very dramatic and violent, so
Yeah.
it's pretty um, engaging. So I've been watching a lot of that. And then season 3 of Killing Eve started again a few weeks
Okay.
ago. So I've been watching that on Sundays, and it's really good so far.
What's the spoiler-free pitch for Killing Eve? I don't have a lot of info on it.
The spoiler free pitch. So it's about Eve, this woman who is, I think she works initially for MI5, I want
Okay.
to say, and
The real version of the intelligence in what, Britain?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She's in London, and yeah, she works for MI5, and then I think her job is more like desk work than anything, and she's just really bored and kind of over it.
Mhm.
Um, excuse me. And then there's a string of murders um, that she kind of like separately on her own time is kind of looking into. Uh, and it ends up affecting her circle of people. And so she ends up getting invested in figuring out who this is. And the person who it is the an assassin called Villanelle.
Okay.
And they have kind of this like cat and mouse sort of relationship, but there's also some very like uh kind of not romantic but like sexual undertones of like I think they kind of find each other hot because it's like a cat and mouse sort of thing. It's really
Right.
interesting. The costuming is great. The
Okay.
soundtrack is great.
I mean,
And
it sounds like it would be a better version of a lot of bad shows I've watched, so.
yeah, I think it's I don't know. I think it will really appeal to people who like things with kind of an artsy bent
Okay.
because she's the character of Villanelle is like she's an assassin, so she's kind of a she is a sociopath um who just kills people for money, but she's also really into like fashion and interior design. And
There
so
there is an unfortunate truth that sociopaths are often very hot in some way.
yeah, yeah, and she's hot. And so yeah, it's just it's really fun too, and I think that's on whatever whatever channel is BBC is on, like
Okay.
on Sundays. I find it through other means because I don't have television, but
Right. Uh, I just realized that I need to take uh, a set of pills. Uh,
please do.
so I'm gonna do that and
Okay.
get. I'm trying to restrict myself to coffee only while I'm doing this, so that I'm not like dehydrating or anything.
Yeah.
But I also have this, which uh, the coffee machine that broke had a amount of water that is like your daily recommended when you combine it with my main water cup.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gotten the added benefit of a container that just measures that all for me.
Oh, that's nice.
Anyway, I'm going to grandpa struggle my way over to those pills, and then I will be right back
Okay.
uh, doing it live.
uh, you sent me something. Oh, looks like we have some questions. Um, I'm gonna save that till when Jesse is back. Okay. We do have some very... I would entertain with my ukulele, but I don't have it at the moment. Unfortunate for everyone.
Actually, I know I just sat down. I'm going to get more coffee. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Also, short note while I'm here. In maybe not for next podcast, but sometime in the not too distant future, in the middle of our remaining shutdown, I will have an instrument to also join you with while we're set up.
Ooh, yeah, I was gonna do a little ukulele break, but I don't actually have it with me right now.
Oh, well, I guess that's fine.
It's all right. In the meantime, I can tell everybody about shy eels. Because I already told Jesse about the shy eels. But here's the thing about shy eels. So apparently there is, in Japan, a aquarium called the Sumida Aquarium, and they have a bunch of eels. And these eels, because of the shutdown and everyone staying at home, have become acclimated to nobody being in their surroundings, like not seeing people. And now they're really shy. And even when the aquarium employees come over to like feed them or work with the tank, they hide under the sand. They stick, I don't know what kind of eel this is. Let me look it up. But they like burrow themselves inside under the sand like a little meerkat. It's the best thing I've ever seen. I'll post pictures of this on our Instagram. But this is this can be our weekly uplifting news corner. It's really cute. You should check out these eels. Oh, no, I totally missed. The whole point of telling the story. This aquarium is asking people to FaceTime their eels so that they can get reacclimated to people. And now I'm going to say it again. I can't find it. I was telling everyone about the eels.
Oh, good. Yeah, the eels are great.
Yes. I'm trying to figure out what species of eel it is because they're really awesome. I have never seen eels like this, but they have like, you saw the photo, they have kind of a base of sand in the tank and they burrow themselves in it.
Type in prairie dog eel. I bet that'll get you the actual name.
That's funny. I was just saying that they remind me of meerkats and
Oh, yeah.
prairie dogs. If my phone ever decides to work. Prairie dog eels. The first thing that comes up is what is the life expectancy of a prairie dog?
Huh.
And do they attack humans?
Weird.
And then we have a disclaimer up here. Prairie dogs do not carry the plague.
That's an interesting issue to have with prairie dogs, I guess.
Now I kind of just want to see people's Yahoo answers questions about prairie dogs. What?
What? You finding some questionable prairie dog media?
Somebody asked 7 years ago, they asked, how much would it cost to neuter a prairie dog?
Yeah, it was like $20.
And somebody has answered, apparently $75.
Yikes.
And whichever sex you get, make sure it is neutered or spayed before October 10th. I don't know the significance of that date, and it is not explained.
Okay. If it's the Ides of October and you haven't neutered or spayed your prairie dog,
you better get on that. Also, there's hot singles in my area, just so everyone knows.
well, the internet will never let us forget that. The amount of targeted ads I get for Kirkland are ridiculous. For like, these ladies want it now in Kirkland. And it's like, they're in Kirkland. There's a good chance that I wouldn't want it now. But also, like, I don't know where they're getting their information. Also, I did that job for a while. Not for that, but for like, for Canada. And it was like, locksmiths in your area kind of shit. So
oh, really?
I know exactly how they do that, and it has nothing to do with anything other than like metrics of getting you to click on something, which is a bummer. Not really a bummer for, singles that want it, just like a bummer for the way the internet works.
Yeah. Well, now our burning questions about prairie dogs and their neutering seasons are answered. Anyway, I was telling people about how these eels need to be FaceTimed so that they don't so that they reacclimate to seeing people and they stop hiding from people.
Yeah. I like that. I don't know. I like that idea. I'm curious what kind. Oh, they're called a garden eel, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know. They're very cute eels, and the idea of FaceTiming with a fish tank is very appealing to me. And I don't know. I sent that to a few people because I would like to do it, but I want people to do it in general.
Yeah. The eels need our help. That aquarium, it's called the Sumida Aquarium, set up a picture on their, I think it's actually an event on their Facebook page too.
Oh, okay.
And they have like links to their website, which you'll probably have to like Google Translate or something. But they have a picture of how they're gonna structure it, and they're just like putting up tiered shelves of iPads. So
right.
You can just FaceTime. Multiple people can FaceTime at the same time. It's awesome.
Maybe the best part of that is that you're going to pick up audio from everybody else doing it. So I'm excited about that as well.
Yeah, the eels will just be like, ugh, stop all this feedback noise. I hate it.
I don't know. I would totally do virtual tickets at, a lesser price or something, but if I could like flip around through channels of all the different locations of what animals are doing at the zoo or something for now, that would be fine with me. I would rather be there because zoo smell is something you don't get other places. There's a lot of weird funks that make up the experience of being at the zoo.
Yeah.
Have you been to the zoo
here? I don't think I have. Not to the one in Seattle.
We should maybe do that sometime when you're here, because it's one of the best like perfectly sized zoos of like you can do everything in that zoo more or less over the course of the open to close time period. But it's exactly about that much, unless you're like some weirdo who like walks past everything. and it has a good set of stuff. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
I can't remember. Oh, I was gonna say, I think the last zoo that I went to was the Boise, Idaho Zoo. That one's pretty alright. It's pretty small.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite zoo funk smell is probably like the bat houses. Those are
Oh
kind
yeah.
of funky smelling. I like the houses that are very dim, like dark and kind of humid. I like those.
Yeah, I like the rainforest house a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like hot weather, but if it's hot and humid, I'm kind of fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
And they they're supposed to reopen at the Woodland Park Zoo some kind of nocturnal house in the future, but they've been working on it for a few years and it hasn't reopened yet, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I bet a lot of zoos are gonna be having issues, considering their entire income is based off of like crowds of people.
Yeah.
But like everything is having that issue. So
Thankfully, as long as it's only, I don't know, there's been a lot of like fundraising style things and stuff like that, but those are important enough to the city between zoos, aquariums, and art galleries that I would be surprised if at least most places have like major issues with that, but I don't know. We'll see. Uh, as long as people don't fuck us in the meantime, we probably won't have to think about it. Also, I know that we have come back to this like 3 episodes in a row. Did you listen to Knowledge Fight throw Idaho under the bus?
yeah.
Because I found that very entertaining.
Yeah, I did like that actually. I think they're probably right for the most part. I'm okay with it. We can give Idaho away. I mean, there are parts of Washington look a lot like Idaho, so
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, Idaho's just sort of if you took pieces of Washington and Montana uh, and kind of mixed them together. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a huge
I'd be
loss.
fine with it.
I mean, you probably wouldn't
I
want
would
to
be all right
be
with it.
there if it happened, but
No, I'd probably move.
yeah,
But uh yeah, that was funny. Um Once again, Idaho, we don't really get any shout outs for anything other than like our white supremacists and general conservative idiots.
yeah.
So, not that I can blame you because those are the loudest people.
Hmm.
Um, did you catch the fun eating my neighbor's corner
Oh yeah.
of the?
I was listening to that and making food. Uh, Not that making food is an uncommon thing for me, but I really enjoyed. I was making both of the foods that I talked about earlier. I did it in like a 2 hour chunk where I had one cooking and was making like two other meals on top of the oven, just
Yeah.
so I could use the time better, and playing the episode going over Alex Jones talking about eating people. Uh, so it was a good time.
Yeah, I noticed actually, I think it was either yesterday or the day before. There was a couple of days of delay, but it was in the news and like
Yeah,
trending on Twitter. And by that time, I'm just like, ugh, all right, well, that's what he wanted.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
it's like a while back he brought llamas into the show for
yeah,
like
they
no
mentioned
reason,
that.
and that too is just like, hey, give me free press. Like, I don't know. Uh,
I mean, all right.
but if everything goes the way it seems like it's going in our go fuck yourself, Alex Jones corner, it should at least. My hope is that he makes bad enough decisions to where he's not in a comfortable position at the end of it, just so he doesn't like get rewarded for being a terrible asshole and inspiring murders for the last like 20 to 30 years. So
Mm-hmm.
That would be my preference, but it's impossible to say. I guess it's closer to 20 years, not 30, because he rose to prominence after 9/11.
Yeah, I think just from the way that he talks and the language he uses, and the guys on Knowledge Fight say have a similar view. I think that it sounds like he's positioning himself to like wind it down.
Yeah.
And so that's good, I guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're nearing the end of the Alex Jones time. That would be good.
It would be nice. And as sort of unstable and like shitty he is at doing a lot of things, and I think he constantly pushes things far enough to where people can see that it's ridiculous, even if they're kind of gone with it. I think that he has more of a forceful presence in that community than like a Paul Joseph Watson or a lot of those people. Like people who aren't necessarily predisposed to white supremacy, I think can get kind of talked into it a little bit easier with Alex Jones, because he's so into like God shit, and he's so into a lot of that stuff that it pulls like a wider audience for some of it.
Yeah, it what's super terrifying to me is like obviously this is the most I've ever listened to Alex Jones now that I've listened to that podcast. But so much of the shit that he says is like, definitely have heard my grandmother say this stuff before, and she doesn't even listen to Alex Jones. It's just like religious weird talking points, like his whole end of days, like we lost, I guess, too bad, like the globalists when we America broke his contract with God when we did Roe v. Wade, like that shit. Like my grandparents for sure, not maybe in so many words, but it's there.
Next week, I have some things I want to talk about when I'm more able to keep a thought together.
Yeah.
Honestly, it stemmed from a combination of having to listen to all that garbage and having to listen to all that garbage in quotations, and having some dumb internet arguments because, of course, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
I have a feeling that a lot of the people that I'm arguing with, I hope that they're teenagers, because if they're not, they are incredibly misguided. But I know that the IDW kind of garbage hits a lot of different people. So next week, look forward to me talking about people's terrible arguments for why capitalism and survival of the fittest is how the world really works, because that shit is all really toxic garbage. But this week, I'm more interested in you looking at those questions I sent you on your phone.
I did see those. All right, let's get into these. Let me pull it up. Okay, should we start with the first one or the second one?
The second one is a quicker one, isn't
it? Honestly, I don't even know. So the second question we have, random, but what does art mean to you? I'll let you go first.
Oh boy. So this question came in like right after last week's episode, so you would think that there was time to ruminate on it, but I didn't think about it. This is basically what I spent college doing, was in the background of every like paper or project or class or like lab time thing. Every question ended up being some version of what does art mean to you?
Yeah.
So I think that has poisoned the well for me actually having a real answer to that. But I think the best answer I ever came up with, and I saw later some other like artists from the past had written essentially the same thing in like autobiographies and things like that. And I kind of, I don't know, the fact that I came to it and they came to it makes me think there's at least something to it, is that art is like, it's still relatively undefined, as like you don't know what art will be, so you can't really put a label on what it has to be, because art can be all kinds of shit. Like I follow some people on Instagram who just do really fancy eye makeup, and that's all they do. They don't even do like other parts of their face. And I find that kind of stuff to be just as revealing of like an idea and an execution and like a purpose as I would find a lot of paintings that I go to museums to see and stuff like that. So like I think that ultimately my definition, or what art means to me in general, would be something aesthetic that's done with purpose, like something that is trying to give a message to somebody else of your intentions, and that's it. Like in a lot of ways, I think that people like to call that answer a cop out, but I think it's important to remember that like industrial designers also are really hardworking artists that have to go try to figure out a way to send the message of, does this coffee machine look like a coffee machine that people would want? Does it give the impression of what you're looking for? It's like when they redesigned Tropicana, and it dropped like 25% in sales because it was so bad. Like they did some stuff later that recouped most of those sales. I want to say it was a few years ago that happened, but that is a great example of like, there is talent and there is intention behind that work, even if I'm not a huge fan of like that being the point of art. It is still the point of a lot of art, is to bring attention to something that you're trying to sell. I also don't like it because that's the part I'm worst at. Like I kind of come from the mindset of a lot of artists who are not super successful, of like, if it has a point and it has a level of like effort and production and precision behind it that means what I want it to mean, then it is what I want it to be. And then like I sell, 4 pieces a year. So like it's not gonna be very profitable for me, but it does fit my like definition well. So I think that's it. I think
Yeah.
something aesthetic that's with intention of delivering a message to people is art, and that lets it cover most things, because aesthetic, maybe not definition wise, but that does include like music and like every other kind of communication for me. So I guess that's really what it comes down to: aesthetic communication. There has to be some essence of like you putting effort into how it is received to somebody else for it to be art. And I do think there's a threshold. Like I still am a little resistant to the idea of like, well, so I can just cut a circle out of tinfoil and call that art kind of people, because that's always the kind of shitty argument that comes out of it. But like the message of that could be art if you presented it the right way, but people who are trying to pull that are generally not. So I think that's my sort of high-minded art student version of that answer.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much. I agree with all of that. I think it basically just comes down to, for me, communicating an idea.
Yeah.
And doing that. visually. For me, I've never gone to art school. My expertise is design, which
I mean, that's
is
still you went to visual communication school.
yeah. I've done like some art classes. I've always been like artsy, but
You've
but
still done more art classes than are necessary to be an artist. I'll say that.
this is true. But I think for me, at least my relationship with art is very mm, I think I might just be restating what you just said, but is very expressive. It's very like processing the world around me and my own thoughts in just a tangible visual way, which is pretty much yeah, what you said, just like communication. So that's I would say pretty much the same thing.
I'm
My
sure
tag to it
people,
is just very emotionally driven, I think.
yeah, somebody out there will have an answer that is more direct, I'm sure, but I don't care about that.
Yeah. I'm more interested in this other question.
Uh-huh. Now to the important
which
stuff.
which I might honestly consider art.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question that goes like this. Should you tell your doctor if you have a Lego in your butt? Asking for a friend. Have we had this question before?
It's hard to say. I don't think so.
I think we had one that was like, should you tell your doctor if you do something? I don't know. I don't know if it's the same person even, but
I mean, WebMD is a thing for a reason. So
yeah.
I think the real like hard question you have to ask yourself first is where is the Lego and can you get it?
Yep. Yeah. That I think if depends how it got there. If if it went in through mouth means, then like probably yes, you should involve a doctor. Although the fact that it's made it that ways that far without medical
Uh-huh.
intervention is pretty great, I guess.
That also asks
But
the question, where does the butt start?
everything below the belly button is your butt.
Oh man, that's a lot of butt.
Actually, I would love to hear everybody else's opinions on where the butt starts.
Yeah, if you listen to this, we would love any comments. Any comment of where the butt starts is really something we're trying to figure out over here.
What does art mean to you, and where does the butt start?
Yeah. So for me, I think it probably depends on if you have silicone tongs and you have a really good friend around, the answer changes. But generally speaking, I'm gonna say anything that involves getting into holes in a non-romantic way probably should include a doctor, just to be safe.
Uh, yeah, I think I'd agree because you run the risk of forever changing the nature of that relationship.
Uh-huh. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know that it's worth. If you have the means, I would involve a doctor.
yes. Also, the answer is usually you should get a doctor, honestly. It
Yeah,
doesn't really
I
matter
don't
what.
know why we're I don't know why you're asking us this. I think that's a good rule of thumb if you're asking yourself, should a doctor be involved? Probably.
But if, for example, you ask this question and it's now been, yeah, probably about exactly a week. If you are still waiting to hatch this Lego, now's doctor time. I think that's well within the limits of doctor necessity.
Yeah.
But maybe try to pick a place that doesn't seem like they're too busy at the moment, given current situations.
Yeah, I think this is something that could be taken care of in like a doc in the box or urgent care, possibly.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think you, I mean, not a doctor, clearly. Maybe you don't have to go to the hospital, is all I'm saying.
Mm. I mean, maybe, um, there's always Dr. Glove that you can try out first if you have to.
If you can find some, yeah,
Yeah.
do that.
Don't use gardening gloves.
God, that would, I feel like that would create other issues
Hmm.
using that kind of glove. Um, yeah, I hope your butt is okay.
Or your friend's butt.
Or your friend's butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're asking for a friend. All right. Mm-hmm. Did we have any other questions, or are the other ones all in Korean?
They're all in Korean. Actually, some of them are in Russian.
Oh, cool. Are they
I
selling us more cars?
I don't think so. But there were a couple other ones, but they were all just like comments on like your blank or like your art comments or whatever. So they're not really useful.
Okay.
But yes, those are the two questions that are questions, and I waited until after the question period had closed, so I think those are the ones worth answering. Uh, we will continue answering every question we get, but if it's ads and we don't have a good spot for it, I'm not going to go back for them because I can't just be burning out my translate.
It took a really long time last time,
Yeah, and
and my
I'm not getting any better at Korean, so
yeah, I was like semi-confident last time that I would be able to understand like a few words, and I understood the pronouns and nothing else. So
Hey, it's more than I understand of Russian, so
it's something.
I don't even know how most of the Cyrillic alphabet sounds. Like I just think that it looks interesting, and that's about it. So
That's my useless superpower is I can like phonetically read it and sound like I'm speaking Russian,
mm-hmm.
but I can't read it at all. um,
I want to say I have like 3 or 4 friends who all know the sounds of Japanese.
I'm jealous of that.
Yeah. I mean, at least Japanese has a alphabet set that are literally just sounds to make like English words and phonetic like translation available. So at least that's useful.
Yeah.
But I don't have a lot of needs in my life to know how to read like hamburger. So I've never tried to learn that. And Chinese is still incredibly complicated. Update, still
Yeah.
incredibly complicated.
um, that's funny. That should be a new segment where we provide updates on things that have not changed at all. Update. The Trump presidency is very bad.
Update to the Trump presidency, same as before. Um, I do feel like touching on that just briefly. I'm pretty happy with our non-political podcast so far, though. So people who have less interest in that, congratulations and you're welcome.
We gave you a break for 1 week.
The main thing I think is worth noting is just updates. The continued not really giving a shit about the Biden allegations. And he gave a statement. Did you end up watching that?
I read it somewhere. I didn't
Okay.
watch the video.
Anything in there? Because I didn't really give a shit at this point.
No, he unequivocally said that it didn't happen. So
Yeah, the little tiny bits that I heard were anecdotal, but they were like he essentially said that they're just trying to trap him, which
yeah.
cool. So the same story.
He said it didn't happen, and he said he didn't remember her.
Yeah.
So
I don't think he remembers a fair number of things, so who cares?
Yeah, that doesn't mean a lot to me.
So that's one update is that's still stupid. I agree with the Jamie Peck analysis of going forward, we need something that is like Me Too, but it needs to be more socialist. It needs to be something where people have some kind of structure to report things like this, and we need to work towards a way of actually dealing with these problems instead of letting people who have the most risk of being the offenders of this decide how we go about determining what the response is. So like especially like yeah, the Trump stuff is bad, and there's like it basically just comes down to like court documents that are not available that are almost certainly, well, yeah, you did rape this person, but we're going to go ahead and settle this kinds of things, where there's, I guess, enough deniability to where fans can be like, yay.
Yeah.
But with the Biden stuff, it is the same shit as that Clinton stuff, and the same shit as basically every like shitty famous person. I, as much as I am not interested in giving a pass to the Ben Affleck stuff from, you know, quite a few years ago at this point, the fact that when the stuff came out, he did just fess up to it immediately and apologize for it should be the example of like the least you can do as a like well-known rich person. Honestly, nobody thinks Joe Biden, well, I would have said that about Trump. People shouldn't think that Joe Biden is like everybody's like favorite grandpa unless your favorite grandpa was also incredibly inappropriate. And I think that even so, if he came out and said that did happen and I want to apologize for it, I bet it would all go away. Like, it's honestly not that hard a thing.
Yeah. That's interesting you said. I've never actually thought of that before, but one thing I'm just kind of realizing is maybe one reason why the instinct is just denial right off the bat for celebrities, politicians, and everything. Maybe one of the aside from the fact that it's most beneficial to just deny it, maybe one reason for that is that there's not really a good framework other than like kind of what you're mentioning. There's not a good example of somebody just kind of fessing up to it and like just, you know, taking the consequences of what happens. Because honestly, the part of bringing all of this stuff to light is not just the fact that it's out in the open. It's also that we have to figure out how to not retrain, but you have to kind of rehabilitate these people and like teach them what they did was wrong, but here's how to be. And ultimately, there are levels to this, but I would like to live in a world where people can maybe not redeem themselves fully, but get better.
That's actually one of the things that this is a weird thing to bring up. I won't bring up like the place I work for by name or anything like that, but we did a thing like 2 years ago, I want to say, that was a workshop, like very small, like a thin booklet for like parents and their kids. That was literally, uh, it was literally.
I've been holding a cough for a long time.
With that style of headphone, it's tough to deal with too.
Yeah.
Um, it was a pamphlet about or a, like a shared pamphlet, like sit down with your kid and go through this like 15-page mini booklet about why it's like societally inappropriate to have done what you did. And it was talking to, I think it was kids between the ages of like 8 and 12 or 8 and 14 about molestations or rapes that they committed. And it was super interesting to see that come through. I've only seen one example of it, but I think that's actually the kind of thing that would be really useful, like teaching people what, even just like what earnestly things like date rape are when they're younger. Like it's so hard to do that in the United States because we treat sex like it's hardcore violence, and we treat violence like it's fine. So the whole idea of teaching people to not do the thing that people kind of act like is more okay than just regular sex and nudity, just media wise, is really difficult unless you have some kind of preparation for it. Because like parents are just the same dumb assholes we all are. Like there's nothing about a parent that makes them inherently better at talking about this stuff. So having something that allows for a normal person to talk to a small person that they have full responsibility for about this stuff, and then also having a system in place that is like, here's the things that they should understand legally, seems like a great idea. That just has always stuck with me as like a project that I had some respect for that came through. That wasn't just like a business card for somebody's like, I don't know, new weed distribution place. Not that I have a problem with that. Also, I'm gonna take some weed pellet on air. So.
Ooh, demonetize.
It's an Altoid. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, that is really interesting, and I haven't actually, up until like right this minute, spent really much time thinking about that side of it, because I feel like a lot of Me Too, not, I mean, like rightfully so, but I feel like a lot of the Me Too movement has focused on kind of exposing the problem, and finding those people who are doing it like culpable, holding them accountable. But one thing we don't talk about a lot is like moving forward and how should it be after. Like there has to be a way for people to move on with their life or get better, I guess, and not continue to be that way. Because I like a book like that, I think something like that should be more integrated into the way we think about this, because I guarantee you that if you ask the average person who's been like sexually assaulted, their experience isn't necessarily always violent. A lot of times it's complicated.
Right.
And a lot of times the person who did it doesn't see the problem, and they don't see that they even did anything wrong. So
yeah. As a human male who grew up, period, my first sexual experiences were incredibly like outside of like, essentially, unless you're like a very comfortable person with yourself, trying to make that kind of connection with people, especially like, by the time I was at that point, I was like in college. So like trying to take your entire life's like expectancy of like this is a thing that people do and apply it in a situation where it's not just you thinking about it,
Yeah.
like you fuck that up. Like the first things that happened to me were like I basically pressured somebody into it without even realizing it because I thought that that is like how people do that
That's
stuff.
like how you do it.
Right. And
Yeah.
then like a few months after that, I got pressured into it. And I was like, oh.
Oh.
And it's like I don't know that there is anything that tells people about that part of it, where it's like being on the same page about that stuff while also never talking about it is impossible. So of course people have these like kind of terrible starts to that whole process because what else are you supposed to do? The most accessible version of like information on that would be porn, and like thankfully that wasn't something that I followed suit on when it came to like trying to pursue people, because that's not a
What's wrong with that? What's
yeah.
not realistic about that?
So what you do is you put on like a costume, right? I'm gonna dress up like Luigi, and I'm gonna show up at somebody's place holding like a big package. And I think that's how it starts. I think that's like the courting ritual.
I'm gonna bring pizza, and you're gonna tell me that you don't have money.
Right.
How can I ever repay you for this pizza?
Oh no. Yeah, I guess in order to have sex, I have to be a landlord, and I have to, yeah, like there's so many good scenarios that you could definitely think as a kid.
Yeah, but God, the more this conversation goes on, just talking about it specifically in the context of America, our relationship with sex is just so incredibly fucked up from the beginning that it's no wonder that not saying that like people aren't shouldn't be held accountable, because obviously you should, but it makes sense that we're having these problems.
It also makes sense that like 70% of the people that I've ever had good relationships with are not from the US. Because they fill in all those gaps of like comfort levels and information that I didn't grow up with. And it helps a lot having people who are just like, why is this a problem? It's like, you're right.
Yeah. We should, make more friends outside of the US so you can understand these things better outside of our weird American perspective. But
that goes for most things, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like we're covering a lot of ground right now. But make friends outside of the US. I can't distill anything else into like easy bullet points, but
weirdly, a lot of learning about the world when you're younger comes from like pen pal stuff if you're willing to do it.
Yeah,
I know that made a huge difference while I was growing up, just having like pen pals mostly being a reference to people online, but it's still like if you meet people that you know are certain people because you met through a community that's too nerdy or too stupid to be something that's super predatory, that's really helpful as a younger person.
Yeah.
Also, meet people that you don't ever intend on meeting in real life. I think that's actually a great way to use the internet.
Some of my best friends I've never met in person. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that is great. Mm-hmm. I think it's a good exercise in just being a person and being a functionally like emotionally functioning, picking up on, I don't know, not social cues, but I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think it's good practice for social interaction. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say?
I think a little bit of this is revealing of our anxious, artsy upbringing.
I'm really
But that's
outing
fine.
myself as just a person who's really afraid to talk to people.
Uh-huh. Eh,
Make some practice internet for.
yeah, yeah.
They're not real. It doesn't matter. Oh dear. Oh.
The world of video chat is going to be more open to people, I feel like, in the future, so that's a plus. But I do think video chat should have like an age gate, because I don't know.
Yeah.
The internet
Or
is as evil as it is progressive.
yes. This is not a reflection of it being evil or the age gate thing, but just kind of funny that some people need a crash course in how to do video chatting. I watched a screen cap the other day of this Zoom meeting where this lady just clearly didn't understand that everyone could see her, and she took her laptop into the bathroom during her meeting
Oh,
and was like going to the bathroom.
it's a
And
power move.
honestly, if she realized halfway through, she should have just like stuck with it because everyone was just. There were a bunch of people in that meeting too. It was like 15 other people. But
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of talking to people while in a bathroom, but I may have mentioned this before. I can't use public bathrooms unless they're empty, so I may have a specific anxiety based around that stuff.
it's
Empty or I'm
possible.
like a little bit tipsy. That'll usually fix it.
Mm. That fixes a lot of things.
Yeah, also guy bathrooms typically are like stand around with your dick out pointing at other people. Like it really is a nightmare if you're like socially anxious.
I'm glad that I at least never have to experience that
No.
because uh, women's bathrooms of bars are actually probably some of the most nurturing and loving environments. Drunk women are probably my favorite group of people. They're
they're
just
a
awesome.
they're a typically pretty good set of people. A lot of the difference between the genders when drunk, uh, I think could almost be how we designate genders. Are you pleasant when you're drunk? Then you're a pleasant gender. Are you shitty when you're drunk? Then you're a shitty gender. And then we would kind of have all the information we actually need.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Do you like ramble a little bit and maybe cry when you drink? Or do you like break things
Yeah, do you
and punch
yell
people?
about things and start getting really aggressive? Then
Yeah.
that's the bathroom you use.
I like this. I like this new bathroom structure you
And
created.
honestly, that just leads me in a direction where I get to go to a bathroom that potentially has like a couch in it instead, which sounds great to me.
And someone in the corner just kind of slurs at you that your outfit is nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
like
there's actual stall doors. That would be great.
yeah, I don't really understand why guys, if you've had the upper hand in like all of history, why you're depriving yourself
Yeah.
of bathroom privacy. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
It's because when you take guys as a group, they are idiots and they don't actually care about most of the things that are like life improving. Like I think that's a big part of it.
Again, there are two genders. Are you pleasant when you're drunk, or are you scary?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that should be our new push socially. That'll be the next thing that the alt-right can say is trying to destroy our kids.
Yep.
Weird. I just opened up this drawer next to me and there's a paper mask, coconut hydrating.
Ooh.
I believe that is Nick's mask, though, unfortunately. So.
Damn. Well, I was actually just thinking this morning. If you send me your address, I'll try and look through my envelopes from my former workplace, your current workplace, and see if I can find a stamp and get a face mask to you.
Yeah, when my back got fucked up, I was mid-finishing your art letter, so you'll have my address soon.
Oh, good.
But, yeah, that'll have to wait for a few days, so you'll probably get it around next podcast, I hope.
Oh,
I sent one to New York, and I sent one to, I guess, yeah, Portland. And they both took the same amount of time to get there. Like I sent them a day apart and they got there a day apart, and that's weird. So I imagine you would get it in the same time frame, which means you should have it by next podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can decorate your workspace. I feel like that's what they're best for.
I would like that. My workspace is pretty dreary at the moment, but so hopefully by next pod I will have that, and fingers crossed I will have orange hair.
That would be cool. I will probably have. I really like the instrument that's coming to me. It is a very cheap instrument, but it's one that I actually appreciate more than most.
It's a recorder.
No. I will say it's not a recorder, but it is in a vein, and we can start our band in real time.
Ooh, a Skype band, just what the world needs.
Yeah, that little orange shape behind my shoulder is some workspace ornamentation from Madison. So
yes. That's my cactus.
There will be some parody there. Also, I'm doing we'll see. I'm always very proactive when it comes to art projects. And I got word that some people were doing essentially like an online gallery, like price controlled online gallery in the Seattle area that I have a pretty good relationship with work wise. And so I submitted stuff. Like I have some things, even if these are a lot of my unfinished things, just around. So I sent them a thing like maybe 2 hours later, and I was the first person to respond and had like, I don't know. I taught them about the hot mimosa. so hopefully that can bleed its way into some part of society over time.
Yeah, I like that.
Still delicious, and more people should know about it.
We will be the missionaries of the hot mimosa.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think my ability to stay somewhat focused is ending, and has probably been slightly ended for a little while. And I'm definitely going to see if I can find affordable pizza so I can avoid working very hard to like stay fed for the next couple days while I recuperate. Thankfully, This is usually a problem. It happened early summer, I want to say, last year. And it hadn't happened for like 3 years before that. I am sort of used to it. It often happens when the pressure changes outside, but it is terrible. Having your back... That was an interesting noise. Oh, that reminds me of something I'll note after this. Having your back be inoperable to a degree. Like, for example, one of the milestones I hit right before this podcast is that I can turn myself to other positions in bed. So, like, that's sort of the level of getting around that I'm working with right now. And as long as I keep my core muscles like working properly, I can walk around okay right now. But getting up and down sucks. And like whenever you're in a position, it often changes slightly, and that sucks. So like, I'm probably going to be walking or laying down a lot for the next half a week. But thankfully, my setup for watching movies with you and friends on Tuesday is not sitting, usually. So that should be fine. And I have this tray for all of my equipment. So I should be able to move it with one arm like I did before. And if it's the worst case for this stuff, you will be hearing me from bed on Tuesday, and that's fine.
That sounds like a good plan.
Animal update: we have raccoons, and I'm very excited. I had never seen a raccoon in Kirkland until like Wednesday, and one ambled through my little yard area very nonchalantly and then crawled up the rock face, and it was like
I love that.
1 a.m, and it was the most excited I've been in a long time. So that's my animal update. There's buck wild animal shit going on outside. We've got ducks, we got squirrels, we got raccoons, we got a lot of birds. It's just working out great for that stuff.
Can we name him Tom Nook for podcast purposes?
I think so. I think Tom Nook is an appropriate. Cool. He's not a raccoon dog, but that's fine. Spiritual
It's as close as it's as close as we're gonna get.
He's more of a raccoon cat, which is what I think we should call regular raccoons.
I agree. Yeah.
Any environmental updates in glorious upper mid Idaho?
Oh, do I have any?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, my internet lagged. It's raining, and we had some light thundering earlier, so that's bad. Pleasant. Yeah, it's very spring-like outside. I might actually venture up to the Arboretum maybe tomorrow to do some picture taking if the weather is going to let me.
Nice. We went from kind of drizzly earlier today to it's fairly sunny out now. Like it's partially cloudy, I guess you could say, but it's Seattle sunny for sure.
Yeah. That sounds pleasant.
Anyway, as per usual, if people watching this want to send us any questions, we have a Instagram at Vegeta for 2069.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to send us anything there. I will also be posting on my Instagram at sour_buddy. Usually on Fridays, I will post a question link for anybody who wants to ask us anything.
Mm-hmm. And we also have an email if you prefer that medium. And it is itsthisweekspodcast@gmail.com. Oh my gosh, sorry. So you can send us your questions or nudes there, I guess.
Yeah. If we could start getting nudes, I think that'll really give us a leg up.
That's one way to get some notoriety for your podcast.
Yeah, we're just gonna start rating people's nudes. That'll be our dark turn.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah.
Weird nipples. 11 out of 10.
I look forward to the weird nipples. All right. Be gone, thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.